Thanks, Chris. Thought this week was going to be a down week? No. The first 2 games this week are absolutely looking outstanding. If you were looking past this week and looking towards all the big miniature named games next week, you need to push pause for a second, listen to me, see what's out there, and see whether or not this appeals to you. Because, you know what? It's okay to buy games that aren't triple digits, folks. Let's do this. Crowdfunding Roundup, everything you need to know, short and sweet, all in one spot to help you make decisions. Let's do this. Leviathan Wilds is up first. Now, this one is very interesting because I actually had a prototype for this, I don't know, like say a year ago. And it looks like they've really revamped this because the first crowdfunding campaign canceled, wasn't going to fund, wasn't doing well at all. And this one coming back again, this is a success story. This is why you do crowdfunding, because they're doing something different. This is Shadows of Colossus, the board game. But it's a slight twist on that as well, because Shadows of Colossus, if you're familiar with that at all, you know, spoilers, aren't necessarily the bad guys. And this similarly takes that vibe and says, you know what? You're fighting the monsters, but it's doing it in a different way because the monsters have these crystals on them that are causing them to be evil, bad, whatever you want to call it. And so instead of actually fighting the monsters, you're knocking these crystals off in the forms of dice that are allocated randomly on the monsters in the first place. Well, not randomly, but very select locations in a binder-esque board, a la your Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion, so that you have 15 different monsters that you're going to be going up against as you climb them, literally speaking, playing cards, outmaneuvering, avoiding attacks, and trying to eliminate all of those crystals in order to free the monster in the first place. Sound intriguing? Yeah, it is. It's doing something completely different. And I think they've really upgraded it from the first time around, and I think it shows. And I mean, clearly it shows. And they've clearly upgraded reviewers because they've gone with a lot bigger people that can put some big quotes on there that you'll recognize. So they've got it all put together, it seems like this time. And almost 2,000 people backing at this point is really, really good. And they're getting a $59 price point. Now, they say it's not going to maybe be available at retail, and that's the big thing you need to know. There's a few deluxeifications that are going along with it, and you're doing a little bit of deck building to go along the way of the powers that are going to be at your availability, depending on which of the asymmetric climbers that you're going to choose. And so it gives you a little bit of everything you need to know on the page, the spiral bound notebook, and it even foreshadows, it gives you a little ring to tell you where the attack is going to be, because you get to see where the Leviathan's attack is going to go. Then you need to get out of its way, you need to mitigate it, and there's going to be 4 different types of attacks or sequence of actions that they're going to be taking against your climbers as they're trying to stop you from being able to do that. I think it just looks great. I mean, I don't really know what else to say from this standpoint. I've given you everything you need to know. There is enough information on this page that you should be checking it out, that you should know about this as a slightly asymmetric cooperative game. And you know me, I love cooperative games. The newsletter here is going to give you different asymmetric mutation powers that you can use to customize your game even further. It shows you how you're going to be doing this, right? Resolving the threat. It tells you where the threat's going to go in relationship to where your workers are or where the actions are going to be taking place on the board. You get to activate your climber. You have powers that can be played on any person's turn. And then you resolve the threat, and it does damage whether or not you can get out of the range or not. Skills go anytime. Play it online right now. The rules are there, and the artwork's fantastic. So it's a little bit more expensive than you may initially wanted, but I like the asymmetry here in terms of the different classes and the different types of mountain climbers that you're going to have, essentially. And I think it's just doing something really cool. And like I said, they've got better people reviewing it than me, so take that out for what you need to know, and they're giving you a little bit of extra gameplay content with the stretch goals. So this is clearly the pick of the week right now for me as someone who loves this game. I don't know. I think they've done a lot better. I wasn't as enamored with it when I got it. And I think, you know, the differences between then and now show, and it successfully funds well over its funding goal just for that reason. So that is Leviathan Wilds, Shadows of Colossus, the board game. Next up is Raising Robots. Raising Robots is taking sort of a Fantastic Factories meets Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition, sort of Race for the Galaxy-esque, if you're familiar with either of those games, vibe, smashing them together, giving you an ability to create robots and building your sort of metaphorical engine with engine parts. And that's what they've got going on, because you're going to choose 2 phases a la those other games every single round. You're each going to choose 2 phases, and you're going to have the ability to go low energy or high energy. High energy is going to give the ability to follow or allow other people to get additional strengths or actions as well during that phase in addition. And you're just getting engine robot building aspects of things as you go along. And it's just really more complicated though than what it may appear. And that's the tricky part, right? This is an engine builder. This is going to be heavier than your Fantastic Factories. This is going to be heavier than your Wingspan. If you were looking at those games and going, this was not complex enough for me. If Race for the Galaxy didn't have as much of an engine that you may want, or in a slightly different way of more stuff going on, this is what that's going to bring. $50 is going to get you the game, it's going to get you the deluxeifications, and it's going to get you a little bit of an expansion thrown in as you go to the higher level as well with the pets, which are going to offer another interesting dynamic gameplay that they talk about right here. This is where they say they're also adding a lot of the content for the backers, so that if you're looking at it, this is what you're going to be getting more of. Pet robot cards, inventors. And inventors are going to be up to 6 players that you can play this game simultaneously with, and you're getting the deluxeifications in terms of the wooden components. They run you through, okay, how you're going to be doing the 2 phases. You simultaneous reveal, you have the energies chosen between the different phases that you're choosing, and then you run those phases as well as building your engines, I mean, your metaphorical engines in 2 different ways here, slowly building your robots depending on how much energy you have and how many other resources, because there are about 6 different types of resources that you need to be accumulating, utilizing, and manipulating, including duct tape. I mean, they ever mentioned duct tape is actually duct tape. You can use it as like one of 3 or 4 different resources in place of it. So again, there's a lot of information. Rado's out there, everyone else that you need to know. There's enough review, there's enough actual gameplay content that you should be checking this one out. And like I said, you're getting a lot of the upgrades either aesthetically or with the expansion that's going to go along with it. So again, I'd say this one is a great value if you're looking for something like that. But the question is, do you want something that's sort of a combination of those two? It's slightly different in Race for the Galaxy, Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition, as well as Fantastic Factories. You know, Fantastic Factories is a great import game for me because it's a low overhead with a low complexity that I can play with a lot more people. This is going to be a step up. This is going to be, more moving parts. And so if you're looking for something like that, this might be attuned to you. But if you're not looking for something that heavy, but the aesthetic is appealing, this one might be a little bit overwhelming. And that'd be my only caution from that side of things. Is it a good value? Yeah, it's an indie publisher. It's $69. Deluxeified, yeah. Otherwise, you go retail later on down the line and maybe you get the expansion. I don't know. But do you need the expansion? Probably not. But that's going to be where the value is if you really want it from that aspect of things. So there you go. I mean, again, these games are really, really good. These games look very solid. I am highly surprised by both of these games when I looked them up in the first place, not knowing what to expect, not knowing where things were going to lie, and color me impressed on the first couple days this week already. Now, let's go to the one I was expecting, and this is Board Game Tables, AllPlay, their latest crowdfunding campaign, and this is the 4 versions of trick taking, or the 4 faces of trick taking, and you've got pies, bacon, Mori, and Lunar, all with a little bit different aspects. 1 or 2 of these look much better to me, but let's break it down so you can see a little bit of what the difference is and why I might be appealing 1 or 2 of them rather again than all 4. As with all of these campaigns with multiple games, I say it's not a value if you're buying more to save more. You're still paying more in the first place. Now, the tricky thing here, I think if I read this right, is if you want some of these upgrades, you get them a little bit more of a better price point if you buy all 4. I mean, that's nothing different. The only difference here between their other campaigns and this one is that all of the little add-ons here are deluxeifications, as opposed to a little bit of the promo or additional expansion content that they've done previously on their other campaigns. And so this is 4 different trick-taking games, and they run through all of them. Pies, essentially, what you're going to be doing is you have 3 different rounds, and you have 3 different decks of cards for each of those rounds. And so the highest person in the round gets to take a card from the trick and put them in front of their tableau. And so you're building this fruit tableau in front of you to get points at the end of the game. But if you are the lowest person, you also get a plum additionally to the card that you are left with. And those plums and the other cards are going to allow you to have more asymmetric abilities that allow you to take other people's cards in the first place. But you're also going to have the ability to call a dog, which can defend your fruit in the defense of, the take that mechanism that it's offering. All of these rulebooks are on the page itself, but a couple of them are a little bit sparse and don't give all of quite the details that you're going to need to know to get the flow. That's probably the biggest criticism that I'm going to make to this page as a whole. Mori, the combination of forest and death from Latin and Japanese. And so they run you through, again, what's this one? This one is probably the most appealing one. So this one has an aspect where if you lead a trick, each of the 4 tricks, if you lead a trick with a certain suit, each of the 4 suits has a different suit that trumps it. Also, this one, if you win the trick, you get to take a die. A die acts as a card, but the cards have to follow suit. The dice do not have to follow suit. The other most interesting aspect to this, and I kind of like this, but I could see it being a hit or miss, is that there is going to be also a suit that has X's. And X's are not considered any suit. But when you win them, or if you take them, it's going to go at end of round scoring. If you have the most X's, you lose points based on the number of X's X's you have. However, high risk, high reward, because if you're the second most, you gain that many points of the number of X's that you have. Also in combination with the tricks that you're going to be taking. That one, by far and away, is the standout one for me. That looks completely different, and that looks like it could be just an absolute fantastic game if you have the right group. Lunar here is a weird one. I'm not really sure what to make of this one. This one is the one that is kind of the most difficult to tell how the actually flow is going to work, and seems a little bit just different than the other ones, and you'll understand why in a second. So you've got these two different types of cards. You've got sort of the animals, and you've got sort of the phases of the moon. And what you have to do is you're going to be playing in partners, and so your partner is going to play one of those types, and then you're going to play the other type, and depending on what your opponents do, if they follow suit or if they don't follow suit, you're going to win it or lose it, which is kind of weird because it's like, well, you play higher, and whoever plays, I can't remember which one it is, whoever plays one of these is the set, the other one is just sort of the combination. And that's just, again, I didn't get the best sense of reading through this one. You're trying to predict and win a certain number of tricks each round, and so that's what matters more, and what sets it apart is you're doing a little bit more of that for the scoring purposes rather than the way these other ones score differently as well. And if you look very closely here, you can see where you end up in terms of number of tricks will determine the amount of points, and so you need to be very careful on where you're ending up, which is going to give you the best allowance of points in order to score the most points by the end of the game. Bacon is the last one up here. Again, it's a team potential game from anywhere from 3 to 6 playing in pairs. The weird thing with this one is you're trying to go out, but it gives me sort of a scout vibe because what you're doing is you're playing in combos or specials, but they don't actually define what specials are, which is the weird thing. You get 2 wild cards that you can use, but you just want to be the first one to empty your hand. The rulebook actually references the player aid, which says the player aid is going to tell you what the specials are. But the combos are just like sets, right? Like 1s and 2s, and 2 1s, and then it's like scout where you got to beat that. So the next person has to play 2 2s or 2 3s, and then the next person has to beat that with 2 6s, or the next person has to beat that. And because the rulebook then says an example of all of a sudden someone playing 4 of a kind, and so it just has to get escalated until someone can't beat it. And then if you can get rid of all your cards, well, depending on how your opponents do compared to you and your partner, that's going to determine the end game scoring. And so this is the one that has the most information gaps, I would say, in terms of understanding how it's exactly going to be done. And so this is the one of the 4. If you have any interest in it, you're probably gonna have to watch the video rather than to read the rules. There you go. That's everything on the page, all broken down, all short and sweet. Looks solid. I mean, there's a reason they're getting $100,000 right now. There's a reason that this one is the most funding. Good games. I agree with Tom Vassal's quote. They just put out good games. Now, whether or not they're all right for you, that is a whole different argument I will not talk about in this video. The next one up this week, we have the Great Rat Wars. I don't really get a good sense of this one either. It seems like very generic hex-based move and take actions. And you're humans trying to knock out rats, but then also trying to blow up dumpsters. In order to win the game, you have to knock out a certain number of dumpsters, and you get the explosive that's needed to blow up the dumpster if you get 3 of the same card of a kind. Does that make sense to you? Well, it's miniature based, and you get 6 actions per turn, 3 actions, 3 movements, as well as then 3 actions. But actions are really defined as maneuvers, but you can also have 3 special skills that go alongside of things. So there's a lot going on, and it says it's a medium weight 3 to 5 player, because the other thing that I didn't mention, I sort of buried the lead there, is that it's a 1 versus all. So it's a 1 versus all, where one is like the rats and the other people are the humans trying to take out the rats, and the rats are constantly spawning next to the dumpsters, and you're just trying to be the last one standing. So it's the Great Rat Wars, right? That's kind of everything on there that you need to know, and it's miniature based, so, well, there's also some standees. Take that for what you will. Again, give you a little bit of the overview on how to play here, but it gives you several different types of movements, several different types of actions, how you can move on the hex-based grid, but then how you're going to be picking up these items and rumbling through dumpsters in order to get them in the first place. Yeah, I mean, I just don't see the difference in that sense. Nothing wrong with it, nothing, bad about it, but I don't see okay, why should I get this? I don't see the appeal personally for me right now. And so this is one where if you have any interest, I mean, there's a couple of videos from Quackalope and Board Game Co. And they seem to like it. So check it out. What I'm missing, I'm not sure what it is at this point. They've got a couple expansions that are going to go along with this, as well as a wash. Stretch goals if they hit some of those. And it's miniature based, which again is a little bit concerning for a first time around, but if you really want to check this one out, it's got about a 25-page rulebook running through all of the different actions, the movements, the mechanisms. And this is the one I'd probably be the most cautious about this week, just if you have any interest in this, give it a look-see. So that's it. That's the roundup. Short, sweet, and to the point, but those first two especially, and even one or two of those trick takers, I mean, I think you've really got some solid games on your hand. So that's why, I mean, this is a sleeper week. You know, this is the week that these games are going to do really well, because next week, which we're going to talk about tomorrow, may be the biggest single week in terms of just sheer quantity and quality of 6 to 7 digit price point raising games. Spoilers, right? And no, I'm not just overhyping that. Legit, I have no clue, and I could see 4 of these easily breaking $1 million. That's all I got. I got too many videos to put out in a short period of time. I'm going to be covering, 3 of those games next week that are launching. So I may do a multi-cam video of a couple of them. I may do all-in-one. We'll see where it goes. But tune in tomorrow if you want to know a little bit more about each of the big ones, especially. So there you go. Thanks for watching. Stay classy. Check out my top 10 of 2022, which just launched earlier this week as well. So I'm not big, I'm not flashy, but I'm just the little engine that could, it feels like, oftentimes on the board game scene. So, I'll take it. Have a great day. See you around.